It is time. That clock's wrong. It is 6:30. Good evening, everyone. Can't look at that clock. Got to look at a phone to get the right time. That one's off. It is behind. Welcome to the Fayette County School Board of Trustees business meeting. It's Tuesday, September 10th. We are here in the admin building, and let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a fun meeting tonight. Lots of good stuff to talk about. It looks like. All right. I'd like to begin by seeking a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended.
I'll give that motion. I will
Thank you,
second
Jeremy.
that, ma'am.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now it's time for public comments on agenda items. None? We will move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes from the regular business meeting of 8/13/24, the personnel report, which includes retirements, resignation, leave of absence, etc. The approval of the August 2024 claims 68627 to 68868, and donations. A donation of $1,500 from Communities That Care to Grandview Elementary to purchase books for their Inchy the Worm bookworm vending machine. I do love that vending machine.
It's really cool.
I just got caught up on the words there. A donation of $2,425.36 from the Fayette County Foundation to Grandview Elementary to be used to purchase nonfiction books for the Media Center. A donation of tools and equipment from Vincennes University valued at $10,000 to WCC to be used in the Construction Technology Early College Program. Again, we are so fortunate and incredibly grateful for our donations.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ryan. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Lori. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we move on to action items. We'll begin with the personnel report. Mr. Harris.
Okay, recommendation for employment this meeting. Classified staff recommend Danielle Cornelius as an educational assistant at the middle school, Nicole Crawley as a Head Start nutrition bus assistant at Little Spartan Preschool, Christina Goings as an education assistant at the middle school, Elizabeth Heath as custodian at the middle school, Flora Murray as custodian at Connersville High School, David Owens, custodian at Fayette Central, Abigail Struing as an educational assistant at St. Gabe's. This is part of our non-public funding that we are required to do by federal statute. And Nicole Troutline as family service coordinator at Little Spartan Preschool. And under extracurricular staff, recommend Monica Brown as a 9th grade girls basketball coach and Casey Ellis as a 7th grade girls basketball coach.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't get the revised one. So I was- Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
It's on the second blue sheet.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Moving on. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the personnel report.
I'll give that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. School improvement plans, Ms. Corsaro.
Good evening. It is that time of year where we come together to approve the school improvement plans for each of our buildings. The state requires that we do continuous school improvement plans in which we design goals around attendance, I-Learn proficiency, and graduation rate. So you can see in your packets that you have all of the one-year plans for each of the schools. Most of them are the same as last year for those of you that were on the board last year. The only significant changes would be the change in the proficiency scores and the data, and then what we do is we work to modify those goals to increase the proficiency in those areas. So if they go up by 2%, then we continue to increase that goal so that we raise the bar. You can see that most of the goals and strategies are built around the district initiatives of being at or above state average on I-Learn, SAT, and graduation rates. as well as you'll see embedded within the plans are the initiatives of providing professional development around the work that we're doing with EES on the instructional priorities model. So at this time, I'm asking for your approval of the yearly review of school improvement plans.
Kim, can I ask a couple questions, or just some things I've noticed?
Absolutely.
And it could be because I'm reading a book right now that's opened my eyes to a few
all right.
things,
Perfect.
as reading can do for all of us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I noticed that some of the plans are less specific than others. And I did like the format of Fayette Central's, partly because it not only listed previous scores, so in their goals of what they want to have, you've got a comparison there. And it takes it out 3 years. And I realize we do these every year, so, for the state, that's probably less important because it's going to be reviewed and renewed the next year.
And just to kind of reiterate how these are created and managed, they are a 3-year document. All you're receiving right here is the 1-year review of the 3-year document. So all of the data is required to be part of the initial plan, but each of those plans are about 20 pages, so I don't print those off for you. So if you go to their website, you'll see where the state has it broken down, where they have to look at previous year data, they have to make that comparison, they have to meet certain requirements that the state requires for each of those plans. So it's a large document.
Okay.
All I'm bringing to you are the changes within the goals that we've made based on the data that we got in the spring. So this is just a snapshot, and they all kind of follow the same format.
They do.
But these are documents that administrators are using with teachers and staff, and so it's how they kind of go through. It's kind of like a lesson plan. Each person that develops a lesson plan has a little bit different technique in what they feel like they need to write down in order to accomplish at the end of the year. But if you go to their large documents on the website, you will see where all of these were analyzed, why they were chosen, what data supports the selection of these goals, and how that goal has been achieved over a 3-year period. Then after that 3 years, then we recollect all of the data and write another large document.
Right.
So this is just a snapshot of their larger plan, and that's why I think some of the schools are more detailed in their bigger document and less in their smaller document, where in others, they work more from this 1-year plan, and so they're a little bit more detailed. So all of them have the same information within the document because the state requires different sections
Right.
that they have to complete. So I think that's part of not giving you the full document, that you don't necessarily get to see the whole picture.
Right.
But they are all on their web pages, and you can view them, and if you want to see the full documents in the future,
No,
we
I
can
don't.
that.
Do you, I suppose it's individual by principle whether they're, or is everybody using SMART goals?
Well, they all are, but some of them will actually say SMART goals within their.
Right.
They all should be measurable goals
Right.
in which they can use data to make sure that they are establishing those goals. How they write them, some of them actually say, I think in their SMART goals, some of them will just say students will improve by X amount, a percentage
Right.
on iLearn. So they're all written around the format of a SMART goal, but they don't all necessarily say that they're SMART goals within
Right.
the document, but they are.
I think that was, what I would just say, and no, I don't need to probably read the 20-page documents. And in fact, I'll be totally honest, every year when you send these, I glance. I don't read through every single thing and then compare, but this year I did. And I just found it was a lot easier for me, and I don't know about others, but when I saw the snapshot of Fayette Central's, it just, right away I knew, okay, these
Right.
goals are measurable, and I can, will be easily able to see, if they have reached those goals. And then I guess my other question was, we've been using EES for a while and Marzano. How do we know which, and I'm going to frame this in the positive because I know we've had lots of successes. How do we know which of our successes are tied to the Marzano approach or what EES is doing with our staff? How do we know that? And are there goals built in? Like, I'm guessing EES says they would have measurable goals that you would
Sure.
look at.
We have a 3-year plan with EES and
Okay.
what we want to achieve from the beginning to the end. And we started this way back when COVID started.
Right.
And that initial thing is anytime that you are trying to increase student achievement, there are lots of wheels and gears that turn in order to get that goal, to reach that goal. And part of it is that whole guaranteed and viable curriculum. And we had to do a lot of work just getting our curriculum aligned because we do have such a transient population.
Mm-hmm.
We have 5 elementaries and kids can move from one elementary to 2 other ones in within a month.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have that guaranteed and viable curriculum, it's really easy for those kids to get gaps in their learning.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent, our first year was just about using Marzano's work of you have to determine what is a priority for your kids to know based on what they bring to school each and every day. And what our kids bring to school could be very different from what kids in Fishers or Indianapolis or even Franklin County. So once you identify what your students' needs are, then you prioritize those standards and then you determine what you're going to teach and how long you're going to teach. Now the state also determines that priority for us as well with the ILEAR blueprints. And then once we got that guaranteed and viable curriculum in place, then it was, okay, just because you have this curriculum map doesn't mean that you're going to increase student achievement because you have to prepare your teachers with the tools and the necessary resources to implement that curriculum guide. So that was the second year of our EES, was that instructional priorities model, helping teachers, especially teachers who are coming to us from careers that are not education-based and don't have that 4 years of teacher college, helping them understand how do I deliver effective instruction? How do I make changes in instruction when kids aren't getting things? And then when all of those wheels work together, you should see your student achievement increasing. And when I presented last month, that steady increase tells us that these are the variables that we have in the equation. We haven't changed them, so the things that we're putting in place are working.
Okay.
Now, if we put all of those things in place and we're not seeing a steady increase in achievement, then that's where we have to go back as administrators and look at where are our holes. Is it the curriculum? Is it the effectiveness of the teachers? Is it something else that is impacting our kids, like the trauma that they bring to the classroom?
Right.
But once you put all those wheels together, you should see your student achievement increase. And that's what these plans kind of help us do.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of like our roadmap of keeping us in line with district goals, school goals, so that we're all moving together. Because with 5 elementaries, if you're not moving together, you're going to see this roller coaster of district improvement. Some schools are going to do really well because they may be doing something totally than the school across the county.
Right.
So that's where that guaranteed and viable curriculum has been so crucial for us.
So that first goal was just making sure you had that viable.
Yeah, establishing what your priorities are in district and buying into them. Then creating those guaranteed and viable curriculum, creating those curriculum maps around state standards, implementing that with fidelity and preparing teachers with the tools and resources to deliver effective instruction. And then the third piece of that is when kids aren't responding to instruction, what are you doing within the classroom to provide them with additional support so that you're closing those gaps? When you put all those pieces together, you should see your student achievement increase.
And I know you present to us at various points, and maybe I haven't been as tuned into goals, but you know, I want to make sure too, and I know you're doing this every day, and lots of times I realize I don't necessarily know the questions to ask. A lot of it is what are the questions to ask. But we all want our kids to be succeeding, and so monitoring that progress through the year, not just, I mean, I know the school improvement plan is for us to see once a year and it's for the state, but you're doing this on the daily with principals and teachers. So I think it would, and maybe you're already doing this, but maybe it helps me to see it in a different way of how are we doing quarterly, can we have quarterly discussions, or can it be at a meeting every quarter, one of our board meetings, that we talk specifically about progress?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because we do tons of progress monitoring. We
Yeah, I bet you do.
data sheets for K.
And I'm not saying we need all that, but just generalized, like, you know, so
Absolutely.
knowing what your goals are and then seeing where we are in that. And because I've heard nothing but positive things about Marzano and EES, but I wasn't aware what all the goals were.
Right.
So that, how would we know as a board if that's
Absolutely.
working?
Absolutely.
Is kind of where my question came from.
Yeah, and it's a very complex system when you put it all together.
It is.
And they all work together in unison, and once you get that, and then it works, but it's making sure you fine tune all of those pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
And you're moving together, and it's a lot of work, and our teachers and our administrators, they have put in tremendous amount of time the last 3 years to get all of the things in place that they have in place, so.
And I know one
kudos to
time
them.
you showed me when I happened to be in your office, and you showed me how now we have the means, I guess, the state to target, like, you can target every student. You could
Absolutely.
look at every student and see where they are. I mean, that bogs my mind how much information you are processing all the time.
And teachers are doing that every single day in the classroom and making changes in instruction, and it's a lot. And there is a lot of data, and that's why we decided to use the early release time for elementaries, to give our elementary teachers a little bit more time to use that data effectively and have time to talk about what are the things that we're doing well, what are the things that we need to change, how can we use this effectively, how, you know, it's just, there's a lot that goes into teaching, and there's a lot that people don't even realize behind the scenes that's happening day in and day out in our classrooms.
Yeah, and I appreciate all that hard work. This was
Absolutely.
just like a tiny keyhole view, and so I'm not asking, because I wouldn't understand half of it anyway, for more details, but rather just quarterly,
Sure.
like, updates on monitoring progress towards goals.
Absolutely, and I can do that for you.
Yeah,
Kim, also, speaking from someone that has been through school improvement plans and from the other side of the desk for 30 some odd years, these are daunting tasks. And we don't necessarily get immediate results. Some of the things that we've tried, okay, it works well for a while, but then it doesn't work after a while. So we're kind of moving targets all the time. We always have the same goal, but how we're going to get there is incredibly different and sometimes incredibly frustrating for the classroom teachers, because a strategy that worked well with one group of kids, and you think, yes, this is great. You get another group of kids, and it's like deer in the headlights. It just doesn't work. So the amount of work that goes on with the teachers and administrators on the big level and also on the individual level in the classroom is just tremendous. And I think that's something that people do not. Teaching classes more than spending 7 hours a day with a bunch of kids and grading papers. There is so much more to that, and the snapshots are just that. They're there, and it's not really. It's sort of like the tip of this big educational iceberg that we all kind of have to navigate. So this is lots and lots and lots and lots of work on the part of a lot of people.
It really is.
Yeah.
well, thank you for explaining all that, Kim.
Absolutely.
All right, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the school improvement plans.
I so move.
Thank you, Chris. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Contract bid recommendation, Mr. Duncan.
Yeah, thank you, and Ms. Corsaro, wonderful job explaining that.
Thank you.
Her focus on continuous improvement is really impressive.
Yeah.
And that, along with our principals, do a wonderful job with that. So the next item of business here is this contract bid recommendation, and you'll see this recommendation in your packet from Skillman, which our friends from Skillman are here tonight. But there is a recommendation to approve some bids for both our Connersville High School and Frazee Elementary renovations. Those bids were received. We did have to go back and we had to rebid, if you will, the electrical and technology portion because we didn't have a bid. Skillman has made the following recommendations. You see those. under the bid categories on the left-hand side of that chart. And all of those are listed there. One of the things we've talked about, and I know I've sent this to you a few times just to keep you in the loop, but those bids did come in over what we'd anticipated in terms of budget, about $500,000 worth. And so they did go back to work doing some value engineering. And so the next 2 pages in your packet go through each of those bid categories and the bids that we received. And then the last page you have in that particular section does go through those value engineering options that we have discussed previously. And so, Randy, feel free to chime in as I go through these, but there are some things on here that we feel like we can do either on our own or that don't need to be part of the project. And so all of those items that are listed on the left-hand side as a Y are those items that we're going to value engineer out of the project. I will say the last item there, the $227,000 item that is the plumbing changes from the base bid. Am I correct, Randy? Fix me if I'm wrong here. My understanding is that was not to be included in that base bid and was inadvertently included, correct? That work still is going to be done, but done out of a different pot of funds that we have leftover bond money from a previous bond. So that will get done. Some of the lighting work we can do on our own. We've had Daryl's done a great job of working and getting a lot of our lights converted to LEDs at a much cheaper rate. The power studies aren't a necessity for the project. The UV system isn't either. So you'll see there, we're going to keep in the project the new starting platforms, which was a value engineering option, as well as the pool timing system. We felt as we've met those were items that we needed. But if we take out all of those items that are listed with a Y, that gets us in the $449,000 range, Randy, am I right there? Right under, excuse me, 499, excuse me, right under that $500,000 mark that we need to be at to get this project where we need to have it. So you understand, we do have contingency money still built into the project if there are some overages and things that happen. But I feel pretty confident that with those value engineered items out of the project, we're going to be in a pretty comfortable place to be able to get the project in under budget, or at least on budget. So, Randy, what I missed there?
I think you covered it pretty well. I feel comfortable with this proposal. I don't want to say I feel, oh, this really came in great, because it didn't come in great. But that's where the market is right now. I don't think it's awful. I think we were pretty close in the projections that were made up front. I know all of us, every time you get rid of or get finished with any bid like this, if it's done properly, everybody's upset. Gosh, I wish it came in cheaper. And likewise, somebody that bid it that was the low bid thought, oh, I could have put a little bit more onto that and I would have still got it. So, I think that's maybe the best determination that you have, is when you get finished with it and everybody's a little bit disappointed, it's probably a good, fair bid, and I think that's honestly where we were.
Great story.
You like his spin?
Yeah, right.
So this West Electric, do you have to go drag them out and say bid on this, or because they weren't?
A lot of the challenge we had was just timing. There were a lot of other projects that were going on, and
Yeah.
this West Electric, I had a relationship with them through Shelbyville. They actually did the Shelbyville project for us, and I got to know them really well. So when I called them initially during the initial bid, they just said simply, we do not have the time. We don't have the manpower to be able to put in a bid in it. So unfortunately, when we didn't get the bid during the original go-round, it opened up the door for me to call and just hound them, and hound them, as well as others. There were 3 other electrical contractors I was leaning on pretty hard, and unfortunately 2 of them didn't end up in it, but West did, and multiple projects with them, so I know they're.
And you felt that bid was a fair bid too, since
Yeah,
it was the only one?
Comparably, I mean, it was really close to our original estimate.
Okay.
As well as the fact that they were a successful bidder on a couple other projects that I'm doing, and they would lead Shelbyville, so I felt like their number was very, very aligned.
If I can interrupt just to give an introduction, I don't think,
Sorry.
and I think we've been through this for a long time, and Tim's familiar, and Chris over here with Gibraltar's familiar, and Victor's familiar. But David Foster is going to be the Skillman representative on site and really managing the day-to-day part of our project. So, and David has been fully immersed over the last 2 or 3 months. I mean, he's probably been the one behind the scenes dealing with all of the possible bidders and answering their questions and trying to encourage us and all those kind of things. So you're going to transition from Tim and Victor to seeing a whole lot more of David as we go through these projects, so.
And I was also the site manager out at Shelbyville, that most several of you.
That's where we saw you, yes.
So, yeah, I was the one out there running that project on a day-to-day, and now they've transitioned me to a project manager, so I get to do independent, which is awesome.
Great.
2 things I think are really important to note that you'll need to know as a board is, number one, these are just base bids, right? So any of the alternates that we had came in, and we just don't have the funds right now to take care of those alternate bids. And so I don't have those in front of me right now as far as what they are. Randy, do you recall? I know the bleachers in the bleachers area was
yeah,
one.
the pool was one. Some of the additional, I think, fixture, it was just a little bit more of other things in Frazee.
Cubbies, some casework, some wall and floor finishes. We were looking after a new boiler, spectator seating, messing around with
And what
the
are you
pool.
saying those were not?
Those were alternate bids. So you have
Okay.
your base bid, which is what we're asking for approval this evening.
Right.
But then you would have had X number of alternate bids along with the project that would have been separately. So this only includes the base bid.
If the alternates and everything had came in much lower, and we had the money, then we would have went with the alternates.
Sure.
The base bid takes care of the
All that.
base. We just don't get
Okay.
some of the other trills we hope to be able to do.
Yeah. Another thing of note I think is really important to note is that you are approving the entirety of the base bid this evening, and we will handle those value engineered items as a change order deduct as we go. And so we've already had discussion with those contractors about those deducts. They know that they're coming, but we would have to start the entire bid process over if we didn't do it that way. And so you're approving the entirety of those base bids, even over budget, and then we'll do those value engineered items as, like I said, a change order deduct as we go. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yes.
I hope, did I communicate that well? I hope.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
And it's, this is a normal process. This isn't something that we only do once in a while. When we do have budgets that are right on the border or something like that, a change order deduct when the project first starts and we get it set up is pretty typical.
All right, well, thank you. I would like to seek a motion to approve the contract bid recommendation.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to the recommendation to approve maximum amount of future GO bonds.
Real quick, Leslie, can I just, can I speak to next steps? Just so we're kind of aware of what we do and
Please do.
what's happening next.
Do you want to come up to the podium?
Sure, yeah, I can do that. So just a few things. Number one, what happens on our side of the fence in the office is that now we send out notice to proceed documents to the contractors. Once you've approved that, and obviously everybody has approved that this evening. So that gives them their contractual start. So we can order materials, we can get submittals in. We turn on kind of our internet portal, it's called eCom. That's where we track everything, including the costs, RFIs, anything associated with the projects. Gives them the ability to order the long lead time equipment. That was one of the things we talked about with the dehumidification unit. That's a 7 to 8 month lead time at least, maybe 9. Yeah. So you'll see that. What you won't see is us just immediately get here and slam a trailer in and just the troops showing up, right? It takes a little bit of time for that to gear up. So I want everybody to understand that. What used to be maybe 30 days is now 60 or 90. Is that about where we're at?
We have an anticipated start date early December.
Yeah.
Like December, 1st of December is the anticipated start date. That's something that I'm going to be working through on lead, as I secure those lead items, and then working with the schools to make sure we can get in. Or just making sure it works out with timing wise. With it being a pool, at the high school being the pool, we obviously want to wait until after pool season's over before we anticipate starting. I also need to make sure that I got the materials for completion. I want to make sure I've got it all done so nothing drags. And then make sure that we're done prior to October 15th, which is weddings. So well, it had to be done. So, which shouldn't be a problem, it's just,
The pool,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and then at Frazee as well, I mean, it's a phased project, 4 phases, so it's gonna stretch out over the full 12-month duration, sorry. Full 12-month duration, and like I said, it's gonna be four phases broken up, with the common shared areas being a lot of the summer work. We're gonna try to squeeze those into that, 2.5 months. But, that, again, it's just, we wanna make sure that we got all our HVAC, mechanical equipment readily available to us, so when we hit a phase, we can get it done, move on to the next one without any slowdown or anticipation. They're basically 3-month schedules, 4 times, back to back to back, so we can't miss.
4 openings, 4 closings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's.
Not counting the pool.
It's critical to make sure that we have all our materials available, readily available on site, and just kind of can't push through the project that way. So.
Do you plan, if I could add one
Yeah, go ahead.
other piece of this, we plan to, Stillman, Gibraltar, and I mentioned this as Superintendent Duncan and also Board President Jacobs, that making sure that staff is well informed in advance. So having a faculty meeting well in advance of the December start, so we're thinking about before fall break, about a full understanding of the project, the timing, how does it impact them, what could they do to prepare for that, but also creating a very positive environment and culture around construction to know what's on the other side of that, so that you have these small little incremental, a new wing is going to open up, a new classroom is going to open up, and the excitement that there's always something fun around the corner to get them through that 12 months. So plan on doing that going into fall break.
So job trailer, likely November, sometime we'll see when we'll work with facilities and where we get that set up. David's not your only person, we will have a superintendent that will also help. We will add an assistant superintendent also, or assistant PM. They will shuffle the paperwork, you'll get to know them, you'll be very familiar with them as we'll spend a lot of time day to day here, working with facilities, Randy, etc. And lastly, I brought crumble cookies, and they're out in the hallway, so make sure you. Thank you.
Bribery.
And Chris, what did you bring?
I came here to see all of you. It's been so long. Honestly, got excited like driving up here because I felt like we spent a lot of time together, and tonight is a celebration of what's ahead. So thank you all for your guidance and your hours and hours of tours and conversations to get to this point. So it's
How many
really
years
exciting.
has it been, Chris, since we started these? Is it 2.5?
2.5 years. Yes.
So, and I think we've been involved almost 15 months.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Yeah, and you reminded me, you brought cookies.
Well,
Next time.
we saw you at a lot of meetings for a long time. It seemed like it was almost every month that you guys were here, and we do appreciate the care and the relationships you've built with us and with principals and admin, and it's just,
dinners at Hagerstown.
yeah, and dinners at Hagerstown, yes. Yep, well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, both of you, all of you, David included.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, on to the GEO bonds.
So Randy and I have met with our friends at Baker Tilly and Ice Miller, discussing the potential of taking on some additional debt for the purpose of renovation of school facilities, namely our bleachers at our football field, our track, and other site improvements possibly over the course of time. We have seen a considerable increase in our net assessed value this year, and so you'll see there that 16.58% increase is pretty sizable. The nice thing about that is that allows us the opportunity to take on some additional debt on our debt service account with no impact to our tax rate for our taxpayers. Big deal, right? So this money essentially would help us to do those improvements, again, namely, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, the bleacher project that we need to get done, and will be essentially the payment term would be just over a year, so 14 months, and that money will be paid back again with zero difference to the tax rate our taxpayers see. So it's a wonderful thing. I think it's a no-brainer in my mind, but I guess I would open the floor if you have questions about that. I know I've put that out to you a few different times, just in preparation. Randy, anything to add there?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Jeremy's explained it well. The one thing ultimately we'll get to is this meeting now is really just to present this, and we really want kind of a vote from the board to really just give us authority to continue proceeding. And if you give us that, then next month we would have a formal hearing, and there's some steps, and I know Jeremy's included a calendar there from Jane Herndon, if you remember her from Ice Miller, and she's provided that. So this is really just, we've got the information, it's the start of the process. There's plenty of time also to obtain community input, board input before we finalize any of this, but the goal would be to have all of this complete before the end of the year.
Yeah, so tonight we're really asking for approval, like Randy said, to start the process and really set that cap at $995,000, just under $1 million in terms of that additional debt load to our debt service account. As step one, to do all of the things that are listed there on the proposed timetable, with the goal hopefully of going to market third week of November and then closing hopefully the second week of December on that bond. So.
And the public probably needs to know, this is not money that goes into our education fund. This is not money that's available except for operations.
Correct.
Not
yeah.
for salaries. Can you
Correct.
clarify perhaps, or either one of you, or just?
Yeah, so
I think
obviously.
the public doesn't always understand when we get money that it is earmarked, or it's specific to a fund.
Yeah, so we have, the education fund is obviously money from the state, that money follows the student, right? So based on our ADM, our tuition support dollars essentially are the number of kids we have in our seats times that ADM support money, and that money obviously goes towards our teachers and our faculty. And this is a separate pot of money for operations, and so that's busing, that's maintaining our buildings, it's everything Daryl, right, and the work that his people do. But it's also making sure that we have a quality product and that we have safe products, right? And we have facilities that match the heart of our people. And so this would be for that purpose of only. We couldn't spend it on our teachers or on salaries, if you will, for those folks.
No, and I don't think you will get many arguments from the public that have ever walked on our bleachers over at the football field. They are interesting, to say the least. Comments were made when we got the handrails in the Spartan Bowl a few years ago, which was fantastic for us older Spartans. And it's an adventure. The bleachers over at the football complex are adventuresome, and this will solve that problem in a very timely manner, in a very effective manner, because it was kind of a lawsuit waiting to happen, in the sense that you could push on a board and you might go through all the way, and it wasn't anything that was anybody's fault particularly. They just kind of wore out very, very quickly. And maybe some of us older Spartans aren't getting any lighter either. I don't know. That might have a lot to do with it. But as one of those older persons that goes up and down those bleachers, when Jeremy said that we were going to replace them, they are actually working last Saturday.
Yeah, they're doing some repairs currently, and I can go ahead and skip where I was going to talk about that in my superintendent report, but we do have an organization that does, or a company that does use bleachers. They're a sole source provider of used bleachers and grandstands in the United States. But they've come out and they are replacing some troublesome spots with aluminum. And our entire student section was replaced here over the last 2 or 3 days. I think they've been there, Friday was when they came, I think?
They came
There was
Friday.
a
Yeah, and they were working Saturday.
Yeah, they worked through the weekend. They were out there all day today. We stopped by to see them, and they've done a really nice job of taking care of some of the troublesome spots that you had just mentioned to get us through. We have 3 more varsity football games this year, as well as a potential sectional game as well. So, so we're taking some steps, obviously, to make sure those bleachers are safe, and we're going to look at the potential of hopefully replacing them in the coming months. So. But it'd be what we're requesting tonight again is that approval to begin that process and to set that maximum dollar amount for that GO bond at $995,000 with no impact to taxpayer rate.
All right, I would like to seek a motion to approve the maximum amount of the future general obligation or GO bonds.
Give the motion.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ryan. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Letter of engagement, Mr. Duncan.
Yeah, thank you so much. So one of the things we've discussed over the course of my 2 months here is a desire possibly to do some board policy overhaul. And so it's really important that we stay up to date with legislative changes, that our board policy doesn't have holes. And so Church, Hiddle, and Antrim is kind of the company that a lot of school corporations will use. I say company firm to cross-check their policies, make sure that they're up to date. It will also make sure that all of our administrative guidelines are up to date. So we have board policy, and then we have administrative guidelines underneath those board policies. Administrative guidelines do not require board approval, but they are essentially what our administrators work from, us as central office administration, but also our building level administration to say, here's the policy, here's the administrative guideline that essentially gets in the weeds and tells you how to do your job, the nuts and bolts of what you do. And so they will go through, they will cross-check all of our policies, they'll check how those align with legislation, statute, make sure that we're up to date. Once we have everything in a good place, then at that point in time, we pay a continued service fee to either CCHA, ISBA, this is what Corporation Neola, there's lots of different providers out there that do this, that when you have your legislative updates that come, they come to you, they say, here are the new policies, here are the choices that your board has on those policies to adopt. That's significantly cheaper, obviously, that renewal service of just keeping them up to date once your policies are in a good place. And so, so this letter of engagement that you see here essentially is saying that we're going to step into that agreement with CCHA to do that board policy overhaul. It is $18,000, $9,000 payable in '24, $9,000 in '25. I think it's well worth that cost to make sure that our board policies are where they need to be. So that'd be my recommendation to approve that letter of engagement.
All right, I'd like to seek a motion to approve the letter of engagement with Church, Hiddle, and Antrim.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Thanks, Mark. Motion carries. On to the resolution number 2024-04, Board Policy Development System, Mr. Duncan.
Yeah, so part of the process through CCHA is this resolution that essentially says, here are the codified system that we're going to use as we chase after these new policies. You'll see those listed there, A through H, very basic. So you have basic commitments, school board governance, students. So we need this essentially resolution to establish those codified sections of what our new board policy will become. So my recommendation to approve that resolution as it's presented.
Okay, I'd like to seek a motion to approve this resolution on Board Policy Development System.
Make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to the fun part of the evening, Mr. Harris.
I know everybody's been anticipating this for long, probably since last year.
Nail biter. Couldn't wait.
Yes, nail biter.
Now, this is our annual, my annual presentation on budget. And it also serves as a hearing on the budget, so if there would be, I don't know if there's anybody in the audience, but if anybody would like to make comment on the budget, they are welcome to do so. But I'll walk through this. You're going to see it follows kind of the same guidelines as last year. Maybe the thing I'm getting better at as well is not necessarily on the screen. You've got a place there even to take notes if you want to, and I'm going to kind of compare. Some of this is like, oh my gosh, that looks terrible. Well, when you find out the purpose and everything and compare it to last year, we're very much in line with where we were last year. So, with that as the guiding bit there, the first thing, gotta run the buttons there. The first thing, and it's another agenda item, so if you've got more questions on this, we are required to provide a bus replacement plan, also a capital projects plan. The bus replacement plan must go out for 5 years, and it really just shows, we've kind of simplified a little bit, but it's about replacing approximately 5 buses a year for the next 5 years. This maintains our fleet. We roll out the ones usually the oldest ones, but occasionally you get I'll call it a clunker in there that we've just had a lot of trouble with. And so sometimes there's adjustments, like we may not have thought about replacing a bus for 3 years and we bump it up in next year's plan or those kind of things. But this pretty well spreads the cost of bus replacement, so it's relatively consistent. But probably the thing that is inconsistent in this, or maybe it's consistent because of the way it goes, the price of buses continues to increase year after year. So we feel comfortable with the pricing we have in there for 2025. And then honestly, it's just some educated guesses going on out to 26 through 2029. So.
And Randy, don't we have trouble too? There's so much downtime from the time that we actually order a bus, and then we have to wait a very, very long time to get that into service, so that kind of skews things too.
It is definitely stringing things out now. I don't know what the delivery is now.
We just got one this week there, all
We
right?
got one
Yeah.
Friday, our last 2020, our 23 bus Friday.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
So we're about a year and a half out.
Okay, but that's better.
It's getting better. It
It's
is.
getting
It
better.
is improving, but it's not good.
It's not good, but it's better than the 2 years that we were talking about a few years ago.
So what is the current lead time for the new ones,
For the what?
for new ones going forward?
They're getting better, and we're looking probably 9 to 10 months
Right.
is what
That's
we're
great.
looking at, but they can't guarantee that. I mean,
That's
they're
great.
starting to get more and more little buses on the lot, but not so many big buses yet. And if you look in that budget, the 1 year where you see all those 135,000, you're thinking that's way too low, but that's for the little buses, like Head Start buses, because we'll replace all those 15s or Head Start buses or little buses.
Joe, is the 220, is that a lift bus?
220 is the flat nose passenger.
Okay,
80
thank you.
people passenger,
Okay,
just like the express basically,
got it.
but the bigger buses.
Thank you.
We've used those because we've cut out an area up in Office Park, and we make 4 stops and drop off 80 kids, so it's been real beneficial to us. So we're starting to learn that a little more and more.
Yeah, thank you.
Other question about bus replacement? Moving on to capital projects plan. Again, similar, but a couple things that I have highlighted on mine that I really want to point out. I think we're getting to the point, our football locker room and football bleachers are becoming severe needs. We already talked about the football bleachers, but I think the locker room also is one of those, the best I can determine. It was probably built originally when the football field was built somewhere in the late 60s,
Didn't
early
we take a
70s.
tour of that, Mark? You were with me, it was cold,
Yes.
it was a mid.
Of course, I'm so familiar with it, it's been
Yeah.
nasty for a long time.
Yeah.
So we are investigating options with that. Nothing we're ready to present yet, but at least looking at it. Another one we're looking, and this is one that we've really added, but you'll see $150,000 there for roof replacement. We're starting to get some age on them. We really haven't spent a whole lot on roofs over the last of the 4 years I've been here. And realize this plan here is looking at the next 3 years out. These are not everything that's gonna happen in the next year. These are things we're looking at. So when I say roof replacement, it may be one of those that, or roof maintenance, we may need to spend $10,000 in the next year on one of our roofs. 2 years from now, we may be looking at $30,000. We may be looking at a roof replacement at some building on out there, but this is just really putting on our look here that we know we're gonna need to start spending money on those coming up here soon. The other one, we talked about it with the building project, but if you look down there, probably 2/3 of the way down, we have looking at about $650,000 for electrical and LED upgrades. We think these are going to be very cost effective. It's just that we have a lot of lights in a lot of places, so the number's kind of big, but we think we could see the return on our investment in a little less than 2 years. It's that quick of a turnaround, so we're looking at those.
LED is a no-brainer from that perspective, if we can find the money to do it.
And then the one at the bottom, our track also has seen its better days, and we have every 2 to 4 years have resurfaced the track, and maintained it that way, but it has not went through a major rehaul in a long, long time. So it's also getting towards the end of life on that.
Is it burned?
So these are all things that are in your view of
Yep.
things we need to do. And then you just make decisions based on what we have and what's the most needed.
Where we feel like the dollar's gonna get the most bang for the buck. Sometimes we're at the end of life and we have to do it. Sometimes, you'll notice on there, actually, we probably did more this past summer and we will do more the summer ahead. We have allocated $160,000 for paving, sealing, and striping. That's one, we've done a whole lot of sealing throughout the district in a lot of buildings, and that's one, we do it on a regular basis to maintain it so we don't have to strip out a whole parking lot and put in all new asphalt. So that's one that it's just a continual, every year it's a need, and every year we address it, so.
But in terms of the plan, we're not going to spend all that money, or we are.
Not in 1 year, no.
No. So even though so help me understand that. I understand that these are all the things, these are all the categories, these are the approximate prices that you think they're going to cost. And do we submit this to the state, or
Yes.
even though?
You actually have a little bit more detailed document behind the presentation
Yes,
for
I see that.
bus replacement. So it talks a little bit more, but this is really pretty general. This is just saying, here are big needs, items $10,000 and higher that we're looking at that we probably will have to do in the next 3 years.
Okay. Thank you.
I think from Leslie's point of view, probably all of us, is we just need to have more updates than we have been having, if that makes sense. You know, just like, we don't want any surprises. We want to look down the road. Here's what's potentially out there for an expense for us. What year maybe are we going to have to deal with this?
We did do a facility study, correct, Randy?
Yeah, that was part of Gibraltar's.
Yeah, part of
Yeah,
Gibraltar's
yeah.
work.
And Gibraltar's was incredibly helpful in the sense that we had stuff that was working, and we thought, okay, it's gonna continue to work, and then we find out that it's 20 years past its shelf life, so to speak. So we need to be able to plan a little bit, because this is probably gonna break down soon.
So for instance, the 125, whatever that, is that thousands or millions? Thousands. It's casework, but that's not casework in like Frazee, which will be included in the project.
Correct. That would be replacing possibly doors in a different building, or some of the casework in other buildings where it's past its life.
And then as far as the cafeteria equipment, that 100,000, will that be coming out of food service? Because I thought that all came out of the.
If we can take it out of food service, the answer is yes. That's not always possible, but lately we have been able to do quite a bit with the food service. So yeah, all of this, these are capital project items. It does not necessarily mean that they're coming out of our operations fund,
Gotcha.
because that's a perfect example that would come out
Yes, right.
of cafeteria fund.
I had that same question. Great, thank you, Randy.
Now just kind of a general review of things. We really have 4 major funds in the school district. The education fund, this is what is supported through tax dollars from the state of Indiana. Come from sales tax, gambling tax, business taxes, income tax. This money for the education fund, it is coming from the state of Indiana. It does not come from local, other than the fact that obviously anybody that makes an income paying income tax, it all goes into it, but it's not designated that people that have an income from Fayette County goes into here. It all goes into the big pot at the state, and then they disperse that out according to the average daily membership that we have in the school district. Operations fund, this is supported in 2 ways. One is by local property tax, and the second way is we have traditionally transferred 15% of the education funds into operations fund. So that's where the tax money comes for operations, and I'll get into a little bit more of the details later. Debt service fund, this pays I call it our mortgage. I mean, from a home standpoint, these are the bonds that we have for the multiple projects and things that have been anywhere from the projects we're getting ready to start to the goldie oldie of the middle school. So, and the rainy day fund is one that has been established. I'll talk a little bit more about that here and some changes or what I'm looking at ahead on that. But the rainy day fund is truly that. It sits there and really doesn't do a whole lot of movement unless we would go, oh my gosh, we have to get this done and we have to come up with money, and do we have the money anywhere? It gives us something for a rainy day or for an emergency.
Is our rainy day money in certain instruments to earn interest?
None of the fund money is specific. I mean, it's not like we take $20,000 out of education fund to do something, or operations. We have a checking account really with all of the funds. It all goes into one pot, even though we keep it in
Bookkeeping wise, it's
separate wise there for the funds. So we do have approximately $9 million invested in certificates of deposit, but the money isn't specific to any one fund.
And then another question, that 15% of the education fund that goes into the operations, that wasn't mandated by the state, but it was recommended, right? Or was it mandated?
It is not mandated by the state. The way it is the state will allow up to 15% of education funds to transfer into operations. You can do less, you can actually do more, but if you do more, you have to justify to the state why you are doing more.
Okay.
And there you need to have some pretty good reasons. We have never, since I've been here, we never went above the 15%, and went below it. We've been at 15% for the 4 years I've been here, and I don't know how long prior to that it was done. But the state does not mandate that you have to do that. It just mandates where you can't go beyond.
Okay. Thank you.
As we go into this, a chart that unfortunately keeps going the wrong direction. But looking at the budget for enrollment, see last year our enrollment was 2934. We expect it to drop to 28, so we're going to drop under 2,900 students. This is district-wide this year. And when I talked about the education fund, what the state provides to us, if you look at that $7,685, that is what the base pupil amount. So any student in Fayette County this year, you take that $2,889, if that's where we come in, then we get $2,889 times $7,685. Break down a little more, but it's really kind of that simple.
And is the complexity index on top of that?
I'll talk about those.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anything else there? Budget estimates, and here's where we get a little bit, we see some numbers here, and I'll give a little bit more detail to them than what it shows there. But rainy day fund, we still have the rainy day fund. With the enrollment where we are now, I just honestly don't feel comfortable recommending that we put $300,000 in it. That's a transfer of funds. So right now, I'm not putting any appropriation to the rainy day fund. It will remain where it is, neither up nor back down, unless we would have an emergency. And if we do, we still have just a little less than $1 million in the rainy day fund. Debt service fund. This is the one I'm trying to look at. What else I've got here? I'll get into the taxes and the tax rates a little bit more on through here, but to give you an example, last year this is a budget estimate, and this is the one that I am guaranteeing you this is higher than what we are going to get, because our budget is not our budget is reviewed by the DLGF, Department of Local Government Finance. Go blank there. But it is reviewed by DLGF. They can only cut our budget. They can, I mean, if I put in there for a debt service fund $1 million, and they go, well, you could have gotten $3 million. There's nothing they can do. It would be $1 million. So you always advertise high. So the debt service fund is advertised at 4.285 million. Last year, we advertised about the same amount, but to give you an idea, when the budget was actually approved, it was down under $3 million. It was $2,919,000. So that number is high intentionally, so that it will be intentionally cut. I mean, even when I figured the debt service fund, to give you an example, you approved looking at a GO bond of no more than $995,000. I put in there that we were going to look at $1.5 million. Because again, I want to be high, they will cut it to the appropriate rate when it's all said and done.
Do you know what the rate is? Like, do you know what they'll cut it to when you, I mean, you must if you.
I will get to that in a little bit, but I mean, ultimately, the rate between, and I've got the breakdown somewhere else in here, I wrote it. The rate currently between the debt service fund and the operations, those are the two local tax funds that get to where we are. We are this year at $1.18 when you add the two together. Based on what Baker Tilly has told us and our new net assessed valuation, we expect it's going to be very close to that $1.18 when we're all said and done. I think these dollar figures would come out with $1.51. Again, it's going to be cut. We can't go more than where we are, but that's where we inflate them.
And Randy, you said last year when you went through the budget hearing, you were at $1.70 something. And you got
We were at $1.77 last year, and it was cut to $1.18.
You got a rate of $1.18.
Yep.
So that's how you kind of know how to estimate it.
Yes.
In what you submit.
Well, and again, dealing with our DLGF rep last year I can tell you, I was off the charts high on the debt service fund because we didn't know at the time where we were going to be with the projects at Frazee and the pool. And he said, Randy, put it outrageously high. He said, I'm going to cut you back to where you have to be. But do not make the mistake of going low because there's nothing I can do to help you. So last year we were higher, even we were at $1.77 when we initially advertised, and it was cut to $1.18. This year it's about $1.51, and I would anticipate it's going to get cut to somewhere close to that $1.18 when they're all said and done. Education fund, again, same way, even though they really don't have as much latitude here because the state's going to say, here's the money that's coming in. I advertised last year a little over 28 million, and the budget was cut to 24 million because that's what we were going to get in with the state. So again, a cut there. And the operations fund, it says 12 million. It was cut to 12.1. It was cut to 12,030,000. And realize that's a combination again of both the tax rate as well as transfers from the education fund. The budget last year was almost that, it was more like 45 million last year, and it was cut to just over 39 million. So again, I would rather scare people high now to make sure we get where we're going to be, but when it's all said and done, eventually we'll get notice from DLGF after they were, I mean, our process is for the presentation now, you're going to vote on it at the October board meeting, then I submit all of it to DLGF, and then they evaluate not just our budget, DLGF, they look at our budget, they look at the township budgets, they look at the county's budget, the city's budget, all of these counties across the state, and they take the same process with all of them. And
so the other entities don't have anything to do with our budgeting. So when we submit to DLGF and they submit to DLGF, and however it shakes out, that's where we wind up. So the city doesn't impact, I mean, we're not having conversations with the city or the county or whoever.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, there are no approvals for us. We don't approve the city's budget, they don't approve ours in any way, shape, or form. But the other side of it is, I guess, there is a meshing of those. We'll talk about circuit breakers and those kind of things. So eventually, the DLGF, they're looking at the city's budget, the county's budget, the school district budget, the township budgets, and they meld all of them together. But they are all independent. They are all reviewed by DLGF. None are reviewed by the other government entities. Just to break down, we kind of went through all this, what comes out of the education fund. This is where we pay anything really related to the classroom instruction. Teacher salaries, principal salaries, instructional assistants, secretaries, athletic coaches, student technology, building supplies. What you don't see in there is the overhead of central office, operations, custodians. Even though the custodians are in there every day and they make a major positive influence in there, they do not come out of the education fund. These are the ones that are affected by the education fund. I've already covered it mostly, but here's the parts that go into it. We have the basic tuition support, that's the ADM. We have advanced placement grant. This is where we get additional money based on our high academic kids, our dual credits all go into that. We get additional money for special education based on our special education students and their disabilities that are in there. And this is where also we come in with the career and tech ed grant. The one thing I want to make note of, though, that comes into all of this also, this is just my stand on my soapbox a little bit. Last year, our legislators approved the fact that parents no longer pay for textbook rental, and then they do not support it at the full cost of what we pay for textbooks. Our education funds, eventually, that might have been able to be used for salaries of any of the people we talked about, could be used to have to supplement and make up for what the legislature does not provide for textbook rental. And here's just a little more graphic of where we expect the budget to be approximately, and a little pie chart. The big bulk of the education fund comes from the basic grant. The smallest portion comes from the advanced placement. The next largest one, the green pie kind of there on the chart, is the special ed, and then the CTE grant is the $646,000. Another thing that I want to make mention of, I've heard kind of, I'll just call it discussions or rumors or whatever it might be, of people looking at the CTE grant going, where does all of that go? How come we're not seeing it all in CTE? And should we get additional funding? The reality is, CTE, that grant is not enough to pay for all that we pay for career tech ed. It doesn't pay for all of our ag expenses and industrial tech within the building, nor all of the students that we send to the career center. All of that comes out of that $650,000. So it all goes into one pot, and then that's used to supplement the career tech ed, but it goes into the pot that's spread no different than what the basic grant is spread around through the whole education fund. Next one here, you will see the property tax caps. Notice that, you know, there the early part from 2015 to 2019, we were pretty level on property tax caps. It definitely shot up there in 2002 and 2003. You can see it peaked at $2,390,000. And then it came down a little bit last year, it came down a little more this year. What tax caps mean are that we can request money for debt service, it goes back to local property tax, debt service and operations. The debt service by law must be funded, so this does not, the tax caps really don't affect debt service. We're going to pay our debt to our bonds. But where it comes in is our operations fund. We would, if we didn't have the property tax caps, we would be receiving about $1.7 million additional dollars into operations, but that is cut because of the tax caps. So that is money we do not receive. But the good news is, you notice between 2024 and 2025, there's about a $300,000 difference there. So the fact that it's coming down, we will get a little bit more in our operations than we did last year because of the decrease to the tax caps.
Is that due to, do they figure tax caps on a percent?
No. Well, yes, it is on a percent. What the tax caps are figured on is that in our tax system in Indiana now, there's a 1% tax cap on residential property. So if you have a house that is appraised at, I'll do the simple, there's a whole lot more calculation behind it, but if you had a $200,000 house, the most you could pay would be $2,000, 1%. So even though the tax rate may say you ought to owe $2,025, you only owe up to that tax cap. Then you get into others that are 2% cap and then there's 3% cap. But the typical residential person, they are capped at that. So if the net assessed valuation does increase on the house, then the tax cap would decrease because it bumps it up a little bit more of what the value of the house would be.
And that's what it is. Okay, thank you.
And we are one of the highest capped districts in the state of Indiana. I know we were in the top 5, I think we may be in the top 10 now. Yep. Tying in with this just shows you going the other way, the net assessed valuation, and this year was one of the highest increases that we've seen to net assessed valuation within the county. And this goes for, this is everything. This is your house, this is the businesses, it's the farm field, it's the whatever it may be out there. This is what they say that Fayette County essentially is valued at. Next one, here's where we are on the debt service fund. The ones that are already in existence, we have the middle school bond. That does pay off at the end of 2026.
Yes.
The Frazee Pool project of $1,159,000. That I think is out for 13 years, I believe it is. The common school construction loan, that will be paying off in 2025. And then the anticipated debt service, that's where I told you I put in $1.5 million. You have already cut me into that's what. I don't hold a grudge there. But you know, we've already cut that really to the maximum of $995. But
Right.
for budget purposes, that's why I put in the 1.5 because I don't want them to.
Can you remind me, what did we do with the common school? Was that the field house?
That was the field house. Yep. The debt service fund, this again just shows where it has been, and we've went up and down, but if you look at 2024, that is the real 2.9 million of what it was. We had a little bit of a spike up. If you remember back in 2023, there were some things that happened at that time. There was a spike up, we brought it back down. Right now, if you look at that 2025, at the 4.2 million, you could go, hold it, I thought we weren't going to raise taxes. That is what right now is being requested. I would anticipate that when it's all said and done, it's probably going to be somewhere right around that $3 million mark. So that spike up is really going to come down back closer to where it was last year. Just kind of for educational purposes, this is where we've already talked about it, but there can be the transfer of funds between education and operations. Our way of doing things most recently have been transferring 50% of funds, or 15% of funds from the education fund into the operations, and this really just kind of shows that they're two separate buckets, but we're shifting a little bit of sand from one to another. The operations fund, here goes back into all of it, and now I'm kind of reviewing and saying it over, but just bringing it in a little more bit detail. That's made up of local property taxes and the transfer from the education fund. The advertised amount is at 12 million plus. I'm anticipating we're going to get about a little less than $8 million in local property tax, and then additionally there's going to be the transfer of funds from education into there, which is about $3 million. We end up with about $11 to $12 million when it's all said and done in operations to maintain our buildings.
And you're showing the circuit breaker saying that is what we don't get.
Correct. If they weren't for the circuit breaker, we would be, that anticipated amount of 1.7, if we didn't have the circuit breaker there, that amount would go up to whatever that is, 9.3, 9.4 million. So that is what we lose because of circuit breaker. Operations fund, what all goes into the operation, what all does the operations fund get spent on? It gets spent on the transportation, the capital projects, so those other two forms that I showed you, it pays for our insurance, it pays utilities, and then it pays educational support, it pays for this office. School board members are paid out of that, what little bit the school board members make. But it pays for payroll, accounting, administration, custodial maintenance, all of the stuff required to run a school district that isn't directly involved with instruction. The rainy day fund, this is one I talked about the same portion process, but it doesn't have any supporting tax rate to go with it. It's only what could be transferred in from other funds. And as I get to the end, summary, reminder, we have been able to accomplish a lot, especially in the way of HVAC, a lot of stuff educationally, over the last 3+ years because of ESSER funds. As of December the 15th, there are no more ESSER funds. And really, any encumbrances and things have to be done here by the end of September. But some of the things that we've been able to accomplish, we're back to just us again. I'm definitely concerned about the continued decrease in enrollment. There's a whole lot of things I worry about. I'm worried about the projects. We have a lot of building needs throughout the district, and how do we maintain all of those? And there's always the concern about teacher contracts. And I know we've got another spot here to have a hearing on that a little bit. And I know that I think the president of the union is here with us. And really, when it comes to teacher contracts, I think over the last 4 years again that I've been here, I'm going to put the teacher contracts into the building project the same way. I think when we get done with it, I think we can, for the last 4 years I've been here, we get to the final session and we shake hands and we smile at each other and say, thanks for your hard work. And I think the teachers probably always go out and go, gosh, could we've got another $10 out of it? And I go out of it going, I hope we can afford this, and should I have really kept back $100? And I think we get to the point, we all understand the process, but it has been a great relationship with the teachers union. I think we have done all we can from an administrative standpoint to really bump up those pay increases. We've gotten some significant, I don't even know what it's been since I've been here, probably the average has been $10,000, $12,000. We'll both have to probably go back and look at it. And it varied. If you remember a couple of years ago, we made some pretty big changes where some got as much as $7,000 and some got $4,000 and all of those kind of things. But those are the things that I worry about and look at the budget and where we come out with it all.
Yeah, I really appreciate the relationships that admin has with the union, and the union being so open to working. It's just a good relationship. In the meetings I've been at, very respectful, lots of good communication. So I hope that continues.
I think everybody realizes where we are, and we don't have as much money as we would like, and to do what we think we want to do for our kids. So we have to spend it very, very wisely. And I think that we've accomplished that very well.
I think it requires lots of listening.
Yeah,
and
everybody would like more, but the pot is a defined pot.
Right.
And how we choose to spend it is always, those decisions are always incredibly difficult to do. But we keep in our mind we're going to do what's in the best interest of our kids. It makes it more difficult maybe on a financial basis, but it makes it pretty easy on, okay, this is why we're here and this is what we're supposed to do. So,
Well,
lots of hard work.
Thank you for that, Randy, and I know we've got a couple more things.
I'd say a couple more items, and
Yeah.
really, they're not on. I think I'm done with my PowerPoint there. So you have in front of you first the capital projects plan. The first page of the capital projects plan, really we brought up on the screen. And if you go to if you flip it to the, I guess technically the third page there, get a project description. These are just the broad categories of what we're looking to do with the project plan. To give an idea, we look at approximately $2 million a year to just, it says building acquisition, construction improvements. I don't know that we're doing any acquisition, but there's a whole lot of construction and improvements and things, and that's just the general upkeep and maintenance of our buildings that we put into it. The athletics, again, the football bleachers are definitely a big concern, as well as the football locker room. HVAC, we have spent $2 or $3 million out of ESSER funds on HVAC, and we're really in good shape. But you still see there's $500,000 there because things break, things go out. I know I'm going to jinx myself right now, but I don't think I've heard from Daryl for about 3 weeks. I don't think you've been there in 3 weeks saying, hey, we just had a fan go out at, name your building. So tomorrow, I don't know what fan's going to go out, but something's going out at.
Not tomorrow.
Ramsey and Eastview
Yeah,
already today.
that's great. You haven't told me yet, so, yeah. So anyway, the next board meeting, you will be asked to approve the capital projects fund, and then we'll move to the next one, but then approve the transportation bus replacement plan. Those are two separate votes, and then we will vote on the budget. So that really just gives you more of the details. And as always, I try to put in a good word, keep Cindy on my good side. But next board meeting, there will be plenty of signatures needed of all of these things that you approve that we need signatures on, because the other part of the budget process is, as we go through all of this in the hearing, next week or next month with the approvals, then I have 2 days that I have to submit all of the signed documents and all of the approvals and send all of that to the state electronically. And then, like I said, then they come back, and you probably don't even care about this, but eventually I get what's called a 1782 notice, and that's from our DLGF rep. So I've reviewed your budget, and here's what you're really getting, and that really sets the parameters for the budget for next year and what we can spend.
Can you just remind me, when we get a new bus, does this price include the trade-in of the old bus?
Honestly, it's a best guess, and it really doesn't.
Oh, okay.
And it's only because I think the maximum I've ever seen is $4,000 for one of those buses. We typically get $2,500 for the buses. So when you're looking at spending $155,000,
Yeah.
I don't want to say it doesn't matter, because every dollar matters. But the trade-in, I think my equivalent is, I think every car that I traded in, I probably would have got about $400 on it. I don't care whether it was a year old or not. So, yeah, we
That's right.
do not get a lot of money.
Yeah, from trade-ins.
I've always been amazed. That's probably been one of mine that from the first day I was superintendent, is like, really? That's it?
Well, you could get one of those buses, you could take it, you could remodel, I've seen this on the internet, and you could make it your traveling home. There you go, for $4,000. Thank you, Randy, appreciate all your hard work. All right, on to Mr. Duncan, the SEA 390 public hearing of the AFT Local 2205 AFL-CIO and Fayette County School Corporation.
That's a lot of abbreviations.
Yeah.
So long story short, Senate Rule Act 390 does require a public hearing before we begin formal bargaining. It used to be this hearing was held separately, and so law did change, legislation changed to allow us to do it within the context of a regular board meeting. Thus is what we're doing. And so, as you mentioned before, really good relationship with our association, our AFT, and so Mrs. Sleet is here this evening representing them, and I'm looking forward to working with her at the bargaining table to make sure we give our teachers the very best that we can. But this is, the hearing essentially just involves allowing public testimony. It can be written or oral about teacher compensation. So generally, this takes just a few minutes. It's, hey, the hearing is open, and then we don't typically have a lot of comments, if any, and then we close. So, hearing that, anybody have public testimony in regards to collective bargaining for this school year? Okay, all right. Randy, anything to add? I know you've helped with bargaining and kind of led through the bargaining process the last couple of years.
this is one again that the legislature put in there that if somebody wanted to come and say and scream and holler and say, you ought to be paying your teachers more, or you're overpaying your teachers, or whatever, it gave for public comment.
Yeah, I will say we're on the second year of a two-year budget with the state. That second year didn't show nearly the increase in state funding, unfortunately, that first year of the budget did. And so we'll see what happens next year when they go to work on the budget again. But we're going to do our best. Like I said, we take care of the people that take care of our kids as best we can. So, do you have anything to add, Amanda? Good. All right.
Thank you. And thank you, Amanda, for being here. All right, next up, persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personal or students must be discussed in private. Seeing none, superintendent discussion group reports. There would be any committees or anything if anybody wants to share. Principal director reports.
I got a couple things. We had a nice meeting for the baseball field on Monday. I mean, we got the baseball coach and Jerry and Andrew got with him, and I think we're going to move forward pretty quick now. They should be laying sod on the week of the 16th. Everything else is in. We got a few loads of dirt to bring in, and so it's moving. I think we're confident that it's going to move forward. I want to say thank you to the custodians. We are running so short on custodians, and we've hired 4 this week and 2 quit before they started. I mean, it is literally, we're asking these people to do more and more, and they can't. I mean, it's tough, so I appreciate everything they do to help our buildings look good.
For sure.
Because they truly work hard, and we don't see it, so.
That's it.
There's some awesome people.
I know, it's not acceptable.
I would like to mention what a great day we had on Saturday at the middle school this past weekend. We had our open house to celebrate not only the centennial of that building, but the class of 1969. Also came by, and if you haven't driven by our building on Grand there is a rock out there that they dedicated to the class of 1969. Just in case you don't know, the class of 1969 was the last class to graduate from what is now the middle school. But just had an enjoyable day, a lot of nostalgia, a lot of stories being told, people being kids again. We gave basketballs, if you want to go shoot a basket down there on the bowl floor, and they just took right off. And this was my homeroom, just all sorts of things. But we just really had a great day. And I had people, I know Ann was there, Leslie was there, we just had a really great day. Just kind of celebrating a 100-year-old building and the last class to graduate. We really had a good time.
And Brian's presentation was absolutely fabulous. I was able to see it. I had seen parts of it before because he did it for the board. And it was just really cool. I saw my first classroom and what it looked like originally, and unfortunately it hadn't changed a whole lot before renovations. But it was just really cool to see, even when we did the renovations for which we are still paying, how the people that were there really appreciated how the old architectural details were kept. Even though we don't have the old gym anymore, the architectural details of the gym are in the media center and in the classrooms directly across. Like, well, I used to sit up there, and these were pieces of the floor. And I have to compliment Dr. Todd. His presentation was just really fantastic. For some of us that haven't, for people that hadn't been there in 60 years, and for people that have been there for the last 40 years, it was just really fantastic. And I would hope that at some point in time you would share that whole presentation with the board, because I think it is well worth it. So kudos for a fantastic job.
Thank you, Dr. Chairman, I have one more thing I would like for you and Randy to comment. It was a rumor that started at the bus garage that we are going to start a bus service outside of school and take that on and get rid of our bus drivers. And there's some real concern in there, and I told them that's never been discussed.
That is the first I've heard that. So,
and I knew you and Randy had, but it came to me today.
Yeah.
I mean, outsourcing, Daryl, like
Yes.
they do in Richmond?
Yep.
Ooh.
And that was a concern for a lot of them.
Oh, yeah, well, it should be a concern for everybody, because it simply does not work.
Yeah, you can put that rumor to rest. We've had no discussion about that. This is the first I've heard that. So we love our people, we love our bus drivers. There's no worry there.
Yeah.
I
Kelly?
just wanted to say thank you to our teachers and families for working together to support the cell phone policy. We've had some really great success with that. Everybody's on the same page and it's working, so.
Oh, that's
thanks
good.
all of us.
Our kids are doing a wonderful job. I had a chance to be in a classroom to record. I didn't realize I was walking in to be a news anchor. I had no idea what I was walking into. But one of the girls, she said she wanted to send a picture. I guess she communicated with my son, strangely, and wanted to send a picture, and she's like, I can't have my cell phone. I don't have my phone. I said, well, good job. That's really awesome. So I
Did
think
you take the picture?
we did ask the teacher permission, and we may have broken the law.
We just
And
announced
took a
it.
photo, yeah, no, that's okay. It was all good though. But yeah, the kids are doing a really, really good job from what I've seen, so job well
That's
done.
great.
Job well
That's
done,
great.
so.
Anybody else? No? All right. Director of Operations, have more for us?
I think you have the fund report there, everything going along pretty well, where we anticipate. If you have any questions, you can, but I'm talked out tonight.
Assistant Superintendent report.
I'm passing around, at the last meeting, you had requested iRead 3 scores. So I'm passing around the iRead 3 scores. This is another example of data and how we progress monitor the achievement of our third graders. And so as these are coming around, you will see it's broken down by each individual elementary. It also talks about the number of second graders. As you know, if second graders pass the iRead 3 as a second grader, they do not have to take it as third graders, but they are included in that third grade cohort. So you can see the number of students that pass in second grade per building, the number of students that pass at the initial testing of iRead 3. We also have some fourth and fifth graders that didn't pass it as third graders but continued on and have to continue to take the test. So you can see the number of those students per building. And then we have 2 additional testing sessions that we can do prior to the end result. So we have some that take it in May. And then if we feel like they need additional intervention, then we send them to summer school and they take it at the end of July. So you can see across the building all of the testing sessions and the performance of each individual building. And then at the bottom, you can see the 2022 data all the way up to the current data, and then our district goal. And you can see the 2023 was our COVID group that we call that missed about a semester of the foundational reading skills. We did take a pretty good dip in performance there, but you can see that with the implementation of interventions and some new resources at K2, all of our schools made those gains back. One of our schools even made the district goal of 90%, and several of them are pretty close to making that district goal. All of our schools have come back up into the 80% pass rate, which is a significant accomplishment for our schools with the number of students that had serious instructional gaps because of COVID and other trauma and mental health issues. So our schools and our K2 teachers and third grade teachers are doing an exceptional job. And so I just wanted to give you that information because you had requested it.
Thank you, really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Superintendent.
Oh, Mrs. Chris, I'm so sorry.
Yep.
So am I correct in saying the state average was right around the 82-ish
82.
range? 82. So if you look at those compared to that state average,
Yeah, we are.
particularly given our free and reduced percentage and
Yes.
some of the things Mrs. Farrar talked about, we're doing really well. And really, really proud of our teachers for that, our administrators. So that's certainly something to grow.
Celebrate.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
just one note, if our schools fall below 70%, the state requires us to use a science of reading curriculum. So we were able to continue doing the strategies and the resources that we use because all of our schools are above that 70 percentile. So that's definitely a goal that we want to continue to achieve.
Okay, Mr. Duncan.
Yeah, so just a couple things to put on your radar. Number one, I sent this to you, but I'm excited about this. Kelly's got a group, Mrs. Plum, that'll be they're looking at a trip abroad, which is really exciting. So I know we haven't done that for quite some time. And World War II and Western Front, England, France, Germany,
Maybe Austria.
maybe Austria. So it's an exciting opportunity for our kids, and so I'm excited about that. Another thing Mrs. Flum has going on, we won $5,000 through T-Mobile, through a contest essentially, and we are in the running, hopefully to be in the top 16. And if we're in the top 16, it's $25,000 I think at that point.
It's the big football stadium, I believe, is the final end goal.
The final end goal would be like a multi-million-dollar overhaul of the football stadium.
Mrs. Havlicek and Ms. Van Meter have taken this on. T-Mobile will be at the football game Friday night, showing, displaying, how we need to promote it.
But I think it has to do with Instagram shares, I believe, and so we have some work to do. Yeah. So, yeah.
I was wondering, how's it decided? Instagram shares?
I think that's what it is. We'll know more soon,
Yeah, they're
hopefully.
gonna give us the information Friday night at the football game,
Yeah.
how we can promote it.
Yep.
But we already won $5,000.
Yeah,
right.
no, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
We
Yeah,
were
even
selected from the get-go to be one of the people.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out. I know Terry's back in the back corner to he and his team for our transition from Outlook to Gmail. I know that's been a little scary for some of our people and our staff. Like, thank you for being for persevering through that, because I know that change is huge. I had an unnamed administrator today send me a message accidentally through like the chat feature of Gmail, and was like, I don't know what this is. So we're learning, but do want to give Terry and his team a shout out for that. I also want to give Kim and her team a shout out, and our administrators for the early release Mondays and the work that they're doing. Really, really good, rich, authentic opportunities for our teachers to grow. I can't stress that enough. We ask our students to come to the table every day and to work hard to be better. And we need to give our staff the same opportunity. And so that space is for that. And the work that I've seen happen there so far by our building administrators and our teachers has been very, very good. And so kudos, job well done to our staff for that. I also want to say this, there's a road closure coming soon, so I want to give a shout out to our local PD and Mayor Frank for their work and their help to make sure we keep kids safe, because that will divert some traffic behind Grandview, starting on I believe the 16th, which is next Monday. So thank you to them for their help, just making sure that we're safe and we're good and everyone's okay, and to Daryl and his team as well for their work. But yeah, I think that's all I have. Anything I missed?
I'm just, Chad has worked real well, putting extra patrol up there for us and stuff during this time. It's going to be real helpful.
Yeah. He said they'll do the best they can. They can't make a 100% promise because things just happen in law enforcement, but they'll have.
It's only for like 2 weeks, right?
Correct. That 2 week window of time, they're hopeful they'll have that done before that 2 week window closes.
Okay.
And so yeah.
It's not going to be pretty for that 2 weeks.
Well, there's a lot of traffic on Western, right?
Yeah.
And so some of that will come down Iowa. I mean, it just will happen. That's the true pathway for those cars to come. I assume some of them will use Grand or use other paths as well. But yeah, we've got some things in place. And again, our Chad and Mayor Frank and our local PD is helping as well to make sure kids are safe. But we do expect it to be more congested, of course, because it just is what it is, right? So thank you to everyone for their patience with that and their help to make sure that we can get kids into school and get them there safely. So,
Thank you. For the good of the cause, anybody have anything they want to share?
Great start to the school year. Great start to the school year. The kids are reasonably happy. Teachers are reasonably happy. I would shout out to Mr. Duncan. I've had kids come up to me and says, "Who's this new guy?" He comes to our school. And I said, "Well, that's Mr. Duncan." Oh, they think that's really cool that you're there saying hi to them, and so you've become rather popular with some of the student population. But I think you're new, and I think that's just really cool that you've spent the time to go out into the individual schools and talk to the teachers, talk to the administration, and talk to the kids, because they think that's pretty neat.
He has also talked to the bus drivers, and they appreciate that.
Yeah.
He's went on every bus that he's been out.
Yeah.
They have commented on that, and that's a big change for them.
Yeah, people feel appreciated and recognized.
I
So
appreciate
thank you very much.
the hard work happens in our classrooms and with our bus drivers and our staff that are working in buildings, and it can be really easy to get stuck here and forget about that. And the reality of it is that, again, the work with where our kids are, that's where the rubber meets the road. And so, yeah, it's important for us to be there as much as we can be.
All right, anybody else? With that being said, I'd look to Mr. Hunt.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
I would second that.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
Get a crumble cookie.
Get a crumble cookie.